Hi there, welcome to Peg Space Bytes. Today's Space Bite is about Gemini 4 and the two astronauts that flew during this mission. Enjoy. Gemini 4 was the second manned Gemini mission involving two astronauts. An important event that occurred during this mission was the first American spacewalk, completed by astronaut Edward White. The Gemini 4 capsule was cone-shaped and had two components, a reentry module and an adapter module. The total height of both modules was 573.6 centimeters. The capsule was simply named Gemini 4 since NASA decided that the space capsules would no longer be named by the astronauts. Jim McDivitt wanted to name it American Eagle. The reentry module was a pressurized cabin that had two seats with ejection capabilities. There were two hatches above each seat. The diameter was 98.2 centimeters on the top and 226.1 centimeters at the base. The height was 330 centimeters. It was manufactured by McDonnell Aircraft Corporation. The rocket that launched the Gemini 4 capsule was Titan II. This rocket was 107.6 feet and had 530,000 pounds of thrust. The two astronauts chosen for Gemini 4 were both Air Force pilots. James A. McDivitt was a command pilot, and Edward H. White II was the pilot. Brigadier General James A. McDivitt was born on June 10, 1929 in Chicago, Illinois. He joined the Air Force in 1951. He attended the University of Michigan and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering in 1959. McDivitt fought in the Korean War and participated in 145 combat missions. After the war, he graduated from the U.S. Air Force Experimental Test Pilot School and the U.S. Air Force Research Pilot Course. He became an experimental test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base. James McDivitt is married and has 6 children. In 1962, James McDivitt was selected to be an astronaut and worked for NASA until 1972. During those 10 years, he was a command pilot for Gemini 4 from June 3rd through the 7th, 1965, and was a commander for Apollo 9 from March 3rd through the 13th, 1969. His total flight time in space was 14 days, 2 hours, 52 minutes. James McDivitt was the manager of the lunar landing operations for the Apollo spacecraft program, and then managed the Apollo spacecraft program. During the summer of 1972, he retired as Brigadier General from the U.S. Air Force and left NASA. Then he became Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Consumers Power Company. In the spring of 1975, McDivitt took a position as Executive Vice President and Director of Pullman Incorporated, and within 7 months became the president of the Pullman Standard Division, the Railcar Division, and had additional responsibilities tied to this office. He earned many awards, including the NASA Distinguished Service Medal, was inducted in the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, and received 4 honorary doctorates. Brigadier General James A. McDivitt is still alive today and lives with his wife in the Midwest. Lieutenant Colonel Edward H. White II was born on November 14, 1930 in San Antonio, Texas. In 1952, he graduated from West Point with a Bachelor of Science degree. He enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and received flight training in Florida and Texas. In the Air Force, White served our country by flying fighter jets in Germany. After his time abroad, he enrolled at the University of Michigan and earned a Master of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering. He graduated in 1959. He was married and had 2 children. In 1962, Edward White became an astronaut. He was the pilot for Gemini 4 and was the first American to perform a spacewalk. His total time in space was 4 days, 1 hour, 56 minutes. After the historic flight, he was awarded the NASA Exceptional Service Medal and U.S. Air Force Senior Astronaut Wings. Edward White was one of 3 astronauts that died on January 27, 1967, in a flash fire, which occurred during a pre-flight test of Apollo 1. Lieutenant Colonel Edward H. White II is buried at the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, New York. With McDivitt and White selected and trained as the astronauts for Gemini 4, it was time to launch the spacecraft. Gemini 4 was launched on June 3, 1965 at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on top of a Titan II rocket from Cape Canaveral, Florida, from launch pad LC-19. Gemini 4's flight lasted 4 days, 1 hour, 56 minutes, and orbited Earth 66 times. McDivitt and White performed 12 scientific and medical experiments and took photos of Earth's weather and terrain. One interesting fact is that this mission was the first time that a spaceflight was continuously monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days per week, by mission control by 3 separate controllers. The greatest accomplishment achieved during this mission was when American astronaut Edward White performed the first EVA, otherwise known as a spacewalk. This feat occurred during the 3rd orbit. Once the cabin doors were opened, White exited the capsule by using a handheld gas gun, which is also referred to as a handheld self-maneuvering unit, HHSMU. He used that to control himself in space until the fuel ran out. Once that occurred, he moved around by pulling on the tether, which was attached to the capsule. The tether was 25 feet long, so he was able to move in many different directions. The EVA lasted for 21 minutes. Gemini 4 splashed down on June 7, 1965 at 12:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Atlantic Ocean, 390 miles east of Cape Canaveral, which ended up being 43 miles from the targeted landing site. McDivitt and White were picked up by a helicopter less than an hour later. Gemini 4 was a great success, so more missions were planned to meet the goals that NASA established for the Gemini program. I hope you enjoyed today's Space Bite. Learn about Mariner 4 and Zond 3 on the next Space Bite. Remember, endeavor to discover new horizons and challenge yourself to reach for the stars. See you next time. Bye-bye.